All right, remember the strategy here. Don't look at the answer choices. Go right to the text and see if you can kind of connect these two dots yourself without getting biased by the choices. Some members of the U.S. Supreme Court have resisted calls to televise the court's oral arguments, concerned that the participants would be tempted to perform for the cameras and thus lower the quality of the discourse. So there seems to be some negativity here, right? This is a bad thing. The justice's worry also seems bad, that most viewers would not even watch the full deliberations, only short clips that could be misinterpreted and mischaracterized. So in a very dumb summary kind of way, these two sentences are both negative. They're talking about worries and concerns and problems, and so we would kind of expect our transition word to kind of account for that. So that automatically gets rid of something like A. Right? However is just a longer version of the word but. So that is for conveying a contrast. There is no contrast here. These are both negative ideas. Now, additionally is just a longer version of and. So maybe that fits here, right? If we have a negative going into a negative, it's maybe just two negatives. That's what an and can do. It can just continue a thought. So that might work. In comparison is also like and. I'm going to call it and plus. Basically, it means we're continuing a thought. But specifically, we are comparing two things, right? So it is not just that we're continuing a thought, it is that we are taking two ideas and kind of bringing them together. We can look closely at that in a second, but let's put it aside for now. Choice D is for example. Now, I don't remember the second piece being an example of the first. If anything, these seem like two separate points that they're making, and they're both equally specific, right? Normally, if I'm going to have a for example choice, I'm going to go from some like big, broad point and then narrow it down with something more specific. That's not really what's happening here. If I look at it and kind of summarize it even more, some members of the U.S. Supreme Court have resisted calls to televise the court's oral arguments, concerned that the participants would be tempted to perform for the cameras. The participants are performing and lower the quality of the discourse. The justices worried that most viewers would not even watch the full deliberations, only short clips that could be misinterpreted and mischaracterized. So this is why I wouldn't pick D. For example, the viewers are not examples of the participants. The participants are like the lawyers. So this is not a specific example of that. This is a completely different example. So that kind of gets us between C and B. I think C is very, very tempting, but B is actually the answer here. Mostly because we're not saying that these are the same. We're saying that the participants are going to perform. Then we're saying that the viewers are going to what? They're going to watch, I guess. So notice it's different people. Also, they're doing different things, right? So if we were saying somehow that the viewers would also kind of perform, if we were creating some like deeper connection, then maybe something like C would make sense. But really what's going on here is these are just two separate points, right? They're basically saying televising the court would be bad for two reasons. First, that the participants would perform, and additionally, that the viewers would kind of misinterpret what they're watching. So additionally is a transition word that's barely a transition. It just means like, oh, also, here's this other thing I want to say. And so that's kind of what's going on here. There's no reason to just like snap to that answer, though. The only reason I get it is everything else is kind of wrong. But I understand if you picked C, it's very tempting, and it does tend to be a more kind of like, I don't know, heavier transition, right? It actually adds meaning. And so we probably, for some reason, want the transition to actually transition, whereas choice B doesn't really. But, you know, words like that can still be right. You just got to read the sentences and try to see in your own dumb summary version what things they are saying.